Alrighty, welcome everybody. Thanks for being here. I really appreciate it. Go-to trainings are a lot more fun when I have a group to go back and forth with. Like I was saying, my name is John Morton. I am one of the instructors for Psychology of Play, and I'm glad everybody's here. Dive right into it. I know this week we're talking about positive psychology, amongst other things. Before we get started, how's everybody's week going so far? Week one hopefully went smoothly. Everyone, you're here, so you've made it this far, which is good. Nice. Looks like people enjoyed week one. Pretty, yeah. My week one was excellent. Went smoothly. I was happy about that. So nice. You say you have trouble hearing bits and pieces, so along the way, if you miss them, yeah, no worries. If anyone does miss anything, I do want to let y'all know. I'm recording this, so we will have the archived version, which will be available as soon as we're done with this. I convert it and post it, so you will be able to go and get that if that's helpful for anybody. Just as a for your information, that'll be available. So today, again, we're talking about positive psychology. Hopefully you've maybe dabbled in the readings just a little bit, kind of gotten a taste of what that might look like. Some of the topics we're going to talk about, we're going to look at the field of psychology and kind of see how it's changed in the direction moving away from the disease model. We're going to talk about the kind of founding fathers of positive psychology, learn a little bit about what that's about. We're going to explore happiness, gratitude, and the PERMA model, which you'll all see as we move forward. So historically, you can look at psychology in the U.S. Kind of in a couple different phases, and this is kind of true of psychology. The world over. It's really changed a lot. Most of those changes have probably been within the last 50 to 100 years. We have, I like this picture. It always makes me smile. But pre-World War II, psychology, there was a lot of stuff that wasn't ideal about it. I always think back to the quack medical devices, things that people used back then that didn't work, or snake oils that people would sell. All sorts of claims and cures and things like that. But people didn't really understand what was causing things, what was driving things, and they didn't really know how to treat them either. So it was all a lot of guesswork. But basically, pre-World War II, the idea was they wanted to cure mental illness, make the lives of people more productive and fulfilling, and identify and nurture high talent. So, kind of people, again, they were doing the best with what they had. They really wanted people to be functional and to fit in society. And not to say that that's not what they want today. There's still some of that. But they were kind of saying, okay, well, if we can cure this, we will. And ideally, we just kind of want, if you're not quite functional, we can still try and find a place for you in society, and hopefully that works out. A lot of things started to change, though, which we look at. It's in 1930, the VA was founded. And with that, lots and lots of psychologists realized that they could go say, oh, I want to go study psychology and study the brain, and I want to go, treat mental illness, and I can make a nice living this way, be fairly happy. So it started attracting people, slowly but surely. A lot of people started going into the field of psychology. Then in 1947, the National Institute of Health was founded. When that happened, the academics came around and they said, oh, we can do research now. We can find, we can get money through grants to go study pathology, figure out, how mental illness works and what's causing it, and what can be done about it. So kind of those two things are really the big sparks that started changing how people looked at and got involved with mental health. and the results were variable. That's what I'll say. Some of it was good and some of it was bad, but those are kind of the two of the big things that really got people interested in mental health overall. Um, so with what we've just said, we've looked a little bit historically at what happened. What problems do you think may have been occurring in the field? What issues do you think the field is experiencing, and what strengths, if any, are present? Does anyone want to tackle any of those? What problems do you think that may have occurred as a result of these things that happened? And if anyone wants to, you're more than welcome to there's a hand raising button. You can raise your hand. I can unmute you for the purpose of the class. I just keep everyone muted just so it's a little bit easier. You can jump in the chat box too if you want to type. But what problems maybe do you think were occurring? Anyone at all? Everyone's typing feverishly, I'm sure. The chat box will light up with everyone's messages. All right, well, while I'm waiting, I will start to kind of slowly go ahead. So some of the pros that came out of this, things that were great, huge strides in understanding therapy and mental illness. So, kind of people started saying, oh, we knew what was causing the problem is one of the things that Dustin wrote. Yeah, Dustin, that's definitely 100% true. People, maybe not 100, but right. People were definitely, they weren't sure what was causing mental disorder. Absolutely. That was definitely problematic. Understanding therapy and how that worked, and saying, maybe we don't understand why something happened, but we've got some ideas about what can fix it. Imaginary versus blameworthy. I read something about. Okay, interesting. Yeah, I'd be interested to hear more about that. What that means, Cheryl. Do you want me to unmute you and you can talk to us about it? Alex also says, and yeah, you bring up a good point. There are a lot of experiments going on, lobotomies, things like that. Yeah, definitely not great. Hey, Cheryl, are you there? I unmuted you if you are. Hello? People were learning from their mistakes, yeah. Electroshock therapy was definitely something that got used a lot. What's interesting about electroshock therapy, and it always comes up, electroshock therapy has a therapeutic value. There is a use to it, and it does get used sometimes, even currently. The issue is that people, for one, didn't know how to use it, and for two, gave it to everyone. That was one of the big problems. Do they still use electroshock therapy? Yeah, they do. It gets used, but I think that the idea that we get about electroshock therapy is this idea about people getting electrocuted and having this terrible experience. Alex says, I think we've seen it be demonized so much that it kind of has a bad name. It does. Yeah, it does. And I think that historically, people didn't know how to use it. So yeah, it was definitely overused. The thing that's interesting about electroshock therapy is that, you think about your brain is just, is sending electrical impulses all the time. So when used appropriately, electroshock therapy can kind of act like a reset for your brain. And this isn't me saying, here's what to do, or stick your finger in an electrical socket. Don't do any of those things. None of this should ever be something that we would do without, talk to a medical professional if this is ever something we're considering. But basically, it can act as a reset for your brain. You think about, and I don't want to, make it too oversimplified. But you think about, your computer starts acting funny and you turn it off and you turn it back on. It kind of, resets and everything kind of goes back to normal. It's I've really, kind of made it oversimplified in that explanation, but it could kind of be thought of in a similar way. So yeah, but it was being overused, and it was probably being used inappropriately as far as the amount of electricity people were using, the power levels at which they were sending it out. But yeah, another pro that came out of this, 14 disorders became more manageable. So they said, hey, we found these disorders. Here's how we can manage them. Here's some stuff we can do. So definitely a lot of stuff. You pay more attention to it, and you can go there. Dustin, Carrie Fisher had a lot of positive results from electroshock and talked a lot about. Yeah, absolutely. Carrie Fisher sometimes is one of the people I bring up in this because before I guess just after she passed, there were a lot of interviews that I was listening to. The Fresh Air with Terry Gross is a show I really like, and yeah, she was talking about it on there. So yeah, she definitely was somebody who got effective, positive effects out of using that. Definitely. New treatments were also identified and developed. So people, as they did a lot of trial and error, they said, oh, here are things that work, here are things that don't work. So there's definitely some pros that come out of all of this new attention that's getting kind of lavished upon psychology. People, they're finally paying attention. They're saying, oh, here's what we can do. Unfortunately, right, like we've talked about, a lot of it's from trial and error. So the trials and the errors and things like that, the lobotomies, things like that, definitely not great. Not ideal psychology work. So that was definitely a problem. Yeah, if you need to leave and come back, that's fine. No worries. So the cons that came about through this. The idea that psychology became a field of victimology. People started being looked at and treated like they were just a victim of their brain chemistry. They said, "Oh, you poor thing," and they started treating people right like they were victims of their brain chemistry. And they looked at disorder before they looked at people, which is one of the huge things that really kind of set back a lot of the ideas about mental illness and mental health, and it really has kind of plagued that field for a long time. People are oftentimes very resistant to go seek help for mental illness, because right, they don't want to be looked at as different, or they don't want to kind of fall into that victimology model that came around. I think that lately, within probably the past 5 to 10 years, there's been a lot more acceptance around that. People were scared to be ridiculed, as Courtney says. People, right, just being known by their disorder rather than as a person. Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Alex. Yeah, that stuff is it's terrible for people, and it doesn't serve the person. It doesn't serve the other people around them. Yeah, no, Danny, you're right. He says a lot of people fear seeking attention for mental disorders because they fear being denied gun ownership. Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of people, right? You're in a high pressure job. You don't want your employer to know about your mental illness. So you hide it, and a lot of times it ends up being those situations develop and they get much worse. Which is unfortunate, because people should be free to go seek out mental health. So I'm a big proponent of that. Go out and address those things and get them dealt with. Prevention is the key. The old phrase, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of the cure. That's really how I feel about it. I think if we can prevent and treat mental illness as early as possible, people will be a lot happier. They'll be more successful in life. But it starts with awareness. So moving forward, kind of again with the cons, practitioners went about treating mental illness of patients with a disease framework. They said, you're broken, you're damaged, how can we fix you, how can we fix your habits, your drives, your childhood, your brain. And they didn't look for prevention methods. They just said, oh well, here's what's wrong with you and here's what we can do about it, instead of saying, hey, how can we maybe keep these things from being problematic in the first place, which again, you I just said it. Prevention is really the key. It inevitably things happen, but education, awareness, and prevention, I think, are some of the huge factors that play into mental health. I could stay on this slide for a long time and keep talking about that, but my conversation will become cyclical pretty quickly, and I'll keep drilling in the same points. So out of this comes the birth of positive psychology. And we have the two leading psychologists who came up with that right there. We have Martin Seligman. He's one of the founding fathers of positive psychology, and his partner in crime, Mihai Csikszentmihalyi is how that's pronounced. I have to write it out for myself so I can remember how to pronounce it, because I can't pronounce it without the phonetical. So inevitably, I think some people might be able to get that, but it's tough for me without the phonetic pronunciation. So they're the founders of positive psychology. Yeah, you're not alone. It's a tough one. So the easiest way to kind of look at it, because people might hear, oh, positive psychology, that sounds a little fluffy. It's not. The field of psychology is it's not just pathology, weakness, damage, the bad things. It's positive psychology comes in and looks at what's good about people, their strength, their virtue, their best traits and assets, and insists on nurturing that. Nurturing what's best in a person, looking at them from what's called a systems perspective, where you look at a whole person, it's not just about helping kind of pull them back from maybe like areas where life isn't working as well. That's definitely part of it, is treatment, but then also saying, okay, well, we can treat this kind of treat where there's disorder, but also focus on what's good and what's working well in people, and nurturing what's best. The idea that psychology is not just a branch of medicine concerned with illness or health, but that it's a much larger, again, a system that looks at education, insight, love, growth, how we play, how we treat one another, kind of overall, what's going on in a person with their life. The last point is that it's not just a I think some people, they hear some of it and they think, oh well, that's a little fluffy, or that's wishful thinking, but it's not really what it is. Positive psychology is set up to use science, and use human behavior to understand it at a deeper level, how people work and how to make their lives work as well as they can. Oh wow, that's awesome. Angelique, is that your name? I hope I pronounced that correctly. Please forgive me if I didn't. But says that this is the type of therapy which has been a big part of your career in geriatric care. That's awesome. Oh, and I got it right. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad. I didn't butcher the name. I'm rough at names sometimes, but it's phonetic, so I got there with it. Again, right. But like what you were saying, working with with older folks, it's super important to to look at a person and say, hey, you know what, I get it. You're at the stage of life where your body might be failing you. Parts of your mind might be failing you, but we want to nurture what's best in a person. Yeah, validate them. Say, hey, you know what? You still have something to offer. And unfortunately, we're at this place a lot of times in society where we're all looking for the new shiny, fancy, exciting thing, and we don't always treasure, knowledge, experience, and wisdom. I'm glad to hear that that's kind of the model that we're working with, with our older folks these days. That's really cool to hear. Um, One of the things that we encourage everyone to do, and I won't say do it, don't do it right now, but we like to check out the character strength survey. I think it's really, it can be eye opening. I think we all have an idea of what our strengths are and what we're really about, and what drives us. But if you have some extra time, go take a look at the character strength survey. It's really interesting to kind of to sit and you answer some questions and it comes back and says, hey, it sounds like these are your character strengths. I think a lot of times we don't, the we're not always looking at our strengths. It's not something we're always taught to look at. So I'd encourage everyone to take some time when you have it, and go check out the character strength survey. So the general idea with positive psychology is that we're not all bad. So much of the world is just saying, here's what's wrong with you, here's what you need to do better. But we want to look at what is best in each of us with positive psychology. So there's an interesting question. Does money equate to happiness? And feel free to jump in with yeses or nos. I'm happy to hear what everyone has to say. Danny says no. All right. He says no. So I had to say it. I had to say it like it was written. No, but buy stuff that makes you happy. Okay. Danny LOL'd that. Yes. Making people laugh. Anyone else? Yes or no? Money, does it equate to happiness? There's 18 of us in the room. So only two of us answered. Oh, everyone jumped in at once. I think in certain contexts, yes, but after a certain level, it stops. Dustin, yes. Okay. No, just offers freedom from bills, makes you happier. Yes. Materialism is what that breaks down to. Only a little. It can, but depends. I say no. I think that money equates to happiness, but even lottery winners, after the thrill of spending the money, are miserable. It does not fix everything. Okay, it's really kind of covers the board. Um, I always like to hear what people have to say, and it's interesting, because right, we're all in different spots. Um, man, I remember being in college and being like, oh man, like some money would really go a long way right now with these bills I have to pay. And you think about, I think about the jobs I worked, for, pretty meager wages. I remember, kind of, I remember working in a warehouse in college and just, kind of, you're selling your fitness because it's, it really puts a toll on your body. Um, for not a lot of money, and I'm I'm happy that that's not what I'm doing these days. Not that there's anything wrong with that work. I really enjoyed the work, and it's funny. It's like I was probably the most fit at that point, than I ever have been in my life. But again, right. There, the idea, and I think that the kind of where the barrier comes in. Um, you know, we need money to function like in society. We can go live off the grid and do our own farming and do that and that, but generally if we want to get along in society we need to um, get money to get by. So right, like to the, and I think that what it comes down to is like money is super like useful up until a certain point, but after a certain dollar amount, we experience what's called diminishing returns. So like it doesn't really free us up that much more. Once our bills are paid and we have our general needs met and some of our wants met, I think money kind of stops being as cool. Like you only get freed up so much. Like You think about someone and it's like, would $5 million versus $6 million, like, does the extra $1 million, like, does it really change that much because you're super rich one way or the other? Justin, I saw a study once that showed that people really do get happier the more money that they get, up to something like $100,000 a year, and after that it plateaus. Okay, yeah, exactly. I think that that's effectively what we're kind of what I would agree with. I'm struggling with that. Don't want to become a carefree barista with less responsibility or manage doing all the bossing around. Yeah, Ashley says I've been better paid in a role, but been miserable. Yeah, that's a huge one right there. Right. Money can cause stress and it can relieve it. So right. So I think that some people, right. It's like, different jobs. Some jobs pay really, really well, but they might be, really high stress, or they might really take a lot away from you. We're gonna touch on this during week 4 when we look at things like our career planning and what we're looking at job wise and how we treat all of that. But yeah, it's definitely something to think about. I've had that conversation with people. Um, what I think people end up valuing, and it comes up. Dan Pink talks about this later on. In the career field, is like what really drives people is, and I can't get into it too much because it is literally a lecture for another week. Is what's called autonomy, mastery, and purpose. That's what people are really looking for in the job world. So if you look up Dan Pink, you can kind of, I'll give you all that hint, and you can go read ahead a little bit. Danny says, yeah, many of us go paycheck to paycheck, so wanting a career as opposed to a job is beneficial in order to secure finances. Yeah, totally. And right, I think everyone is in a different place. I think that if we're stressing about how we're going to keep our lights on or keep the roof over our head, it's super difficult to be happy. Because you've got a lot of anxiety around that. But again, once we get to a certain point, I think that it probably does start to plateau, and we start to get to a point where, money, once we're, experiencing financial freedom, it doesn't necessarily make us that much more happy at each point. Moving forward, I really appreciate. Thanks everybody for jumping in. It's super awesome to have a lot of people participating in the chat. So we have what's called the happiness advantage. And what that basically means is that a happy, positive brain performs better than a neutral brain or a stressed brain. So if you're stressed out and you're worrying about things, you're not going to do as well when it comes to creativity, intelligence, performance. You just don't do as well. If you're kind of always focused on what's negative. So I would encourage people to definitely try and maintain positivity as much as you can. Ashley says, "Yeah, I can believe that I shut down under high stress. Yeah, it's tough. If we're worried, it's definitely harder for us to take stuff in. If I'm anxious and thinking about something, and I'm trying to have a conversation with somebody, I might have to stop and say, hey, I was kind of distracted during this conversation. Can you tell me this again? Versus if I'm, positive and I'm feeling good and I'm in a good mood, I can say, hey, I can give my attention to someone. I can pick up what they're saying." I noticed, Cheryl says, I noticed a lot of people get derailed or shut down when feeling intimidated or under pressure. Yeah, absolutely. Because what it comes down to is the stress touches on our fight or flight responses that we have. And again, I'm reading ahead in the book here, so you might hear this again next week or the week after. But when we're stressed, it's harder for us because literally, just what you said, we shut down. Our brain shuts down when we're under stress. Our brain starts saying, "Okay, what's important? What's the animal part of us says, okay, what are the critical functions? What do I need to do to make sure we're moving along and moving forward and getting ahead and not getting eaten by a lion?" Which is part of our brain that is was very helpful evolutionary to make sure we didn't get eaten by lions or other things, but at a certain point can be really problematic because we end up feeling stressed a lot more, and maybe our stress is very we're stressed out about money. Well, there's no amount of shutting down brain or body functions that's going to make us earn more money. That just doesn't work that way. Cheryl, yeah, seeing your stress as a challenge and not a threat. Um, yeah, absolutely. That's a huge one right there. So happiness and perception are kind of the Cheryl. You're there. You go. Referencing the readings, the videos. There we go. You're my kind of student. So happiness and perception. Um, it's really the way that we view the world. What we view in the world, what we're looking at, how we choose to focus, what we choose to focus on, goes a long way. Alice says it's kind of weird, have anxiety and stress. So stress happens a lot. So I have to be positive and work through it to get work done. Yeah, absolutely. You know, and yeah, it's definitely it's something that we do. We have to work through. I talk about this a lot in my lectures on campus. At a certain point in life, I just realized that there were certain things I could do to set myself up to feel better and to be positive. And like what music I listened to, even, there were certain, bands I could listen to. And if I listened to, certain music on my way into work, I was just in a better mood the whole day at work. And I was, uh, yeah, I got pumped up for it. And that's different for everyone. What works for them. Charles says, my favorite saying from Wing Dryer, and it's so true. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Yeah, absolutely. I think that perception is definitely one of the things that's really tough these days. I think, and I'm not making excuses, but I think that social media is one of the things that makes that difficult. There's this really great video which I didn't include because I didn't want to take up all of our time, because I'm showing some other videos later on, but basically, social media, people are putting the best 10% of their life up on social media. They're saying, hey, oh, look at this, I just worked out, or look at this, I just did something great. And there's nothing wrong with that. People want to share their best self. They want to say, hey, I'm doing great. But we tend to get the idea. We say, oh man, this person's life is great and amazing because everything they share is this awesome new thing. When in reality, they might have, be going through a tough time or having other stuff that's not great happening, but they're not going to share that on social media because it's not what they want to do or what they feel like they're supposed to do. Alex, this is very true. I have good vibe zones in my home. So I tell people all the time to harsh my good vibe areas. Yeah. Yeah, we start to live other people's lives and abandon our own through, yeah, we say, oh, what's going on in your life? It seems cool. I want to jump on that. No one shares their stress, as Courtney says. Yeah, that's absolutely correct. Some people do, but right, for the vast majority of people are only saying, hey, look at how great things are for me. Really though, I guess I'd encourage everyone at this point to just say, hey, you know what? We should never compare the way that we're feeling inside to the way that we are perceiving people on the outside. That's really, kind of where I'll leave it at that point. It's very unlikely that anyone is ever 100% fully transparent and just says everything that's actually going on with them. I think everyone struggles, but I think people have a hard time sharing it. Not that that's right, wrong, or indifferent. I think it's just what we do as human beings. Internal and external stuff. Yeah, Cheryl. It's hard to internalize the external sometimes. Yeah, definitely. Um, Yeah. So again, 90% of our long-term happiness is predicted by how we perceive the world, and how we process that. So, just kind of think about that, when we have challenges, it's I can look at it as a challenge, an obstacle, whatever I want to look at. And I get to choose how I look at things, when we look at, uh, Cheryl says, stay optimistic and things will be bright. Yeah, I agree. I look at things like, even paying a bill. Um, I can look every month and say, okay, I have to pay this, you got to pay the mortgage or whatever you say. And you can look at that two ways. You can say, I got to give them my money. They're taking it from me. This is so rough. Or I can say, hey, you know what? I'm really happy that I'm able to keep a roof over my head. I get the opportunity to house my family and, keep them safe and happy. And I get to feel good about the exchange then. And it's different for everyone. It's the same way, with going to work or school. I can say, I got to drag myself into work today. Or I can say, I'm so grateful that I have a job that I like going to, that helps me pay my bills so I can house my family and keep them, fed and warm and safe. And the result is the same, I mean, or the actions. I'm doing the same things one way or the other. It's just the way that I look at it that changes. Alex, perception is everything. Glass half empty or half full. Half full gets you further. Yeah, I totally agree with you. Positivity goes a really long way. I think that it's hard to, I feel like sometimes, kind of the world might maybe, make jokes about if you're too positive. You're like, oh, that guy's always in a great mood or whatever. I'm for it. I think it's good. I think it works out. People, I think, want to be around other people who are positive. So, even if it's something that's a new practice, give it a whirl, see how it goes. If it doesn't work out, you can always go back. You can always, if you tend to kind of gravitate towards negative, if you try being positive and you don't like it, you don't like the results, change back. Do whatever do what you want, but figure out. I think it'll probably work out well. So give it a try. So we have the PERMA model, and PERMA is an acronym: positive emotion, engagement, relationships, meaning, and accomplishments. So I think that we've thoroughly gone over positive emotions. That's really a big piece of our well-being. People who are happy, kind of, they just feel better. Shows us on someone's page I saw earlier, dear optimist, pessimist, realist. While you guys were busy arguing about the glass of water, I drank it with the opportunist. That is pretty funny. I like that. So right, how we feel, how we view the world goes a really long way. So positive emotion is a great starting place. Engagement. It's a big one. How are we spending our time? What are we doing? Are we out there engaging with the world, or are we just kind of spinning? Do we go out and do we meet people? Do we know what's going on? When we do engage completely, we can enter a flow state, which we will talk about here shortly. Relationships. I think that everyone has them. Some people have a ton of relationships. Some people have a few. I think that they're really important. whether, I think most people are probably connected with their family and their friends, and some people say, oh, I choose my family, and that works too. If you're friends, you feel like your friends are your family, that works. Sometimes it's our neighbors, our coworkers. I think everyone has a slightly different place where they want to connect. Some people are really involved in their neighborhoods. That's awesome. Some people at work, some people, just have their friends and they get together. Whatever it is, I think the idea is that we're in relationship with someone. Where that happens and how it happens is not as important, as long as as that we're doing it. So everyone hopefully has something that wakes them up in the morning, gets them out of bed, says, "Hey, it's time to get out of bed. What's our meaning? What is the thing that is really driving us?" It's something that's bigger than us, and right, it can be really, it can fall under any category. They say, it can be something faith-based or community work, family, politics, charity, professional or creative goals. But right, what gives our lives meaning? What do we feel like what's the important work that I'm doing every day? It's not hard for me to get up and say, all right, it's time to go work with students today, because I know, it's like, all right, cool. I'm helping people get on their path in life, whatever that looks like, whatever the dream is that brought you to our front door. I'm helping facilitate that. Because everyone has to get through this class. And I say, okay, I've got some tools that I'd like to impart on you along your way. So, hopefully these are, a good way to start your journey. An accomplishment. I think everyone likes to be recognized for the work that they do, whether they like, some people are like, I want to go to an award show. And some people are like, I like knowing that, my work touched people, that it did something. It's going to be different for each of us. One person's accomplishments to the next are going to be different. What someone views as an accomplishment is likely going to be pretty far off from what another person views as an accomplishment. But again, it's important to mark our successes and say, hey, you know what? Um, we won today. We did something good. It builds back into our well-being and our happiness. And it's nice to every now and then look back and just say, wow, like from where I started to where I am now, I've really hit a lot of goals. I've accomplished quite a bit. It, so yeah, mark those things. Keep track of them. It's important to go back and look every now and then. So some of the ways that we can increase our happiness. We've talked about perception. We've talked about looking on the bright side of things. Giving our time. So volunteerism. One of those things that really, I think it's a little bit harder for some people than it is others to get going in it. But I think that once we get going, it's a lot easier to stay involved in. Acts of kindness, just being. I hope everyone is being kind to one another all the time, but kind of every now and then just going out of your way to do something nice for someone who, maybe something that they couldn't do for themselves, maybe something that they could do for themselves, but you said, hey, I want to do this thing for you. Whatever it is. I'm a big fan of funny things. I think that's probably it's one of the things that I don't mean things, like mean jokes, although I do like jokes. But find things that make you laugh, find what makes you smile, and go with them. Um, I'll tell you all a brief story, because I currently have a bit of a practical joke that I am playing with my sister. Um, I am into I keep a lot of plants and fruit trees mostly, but my sister lives up in the north, and I gave her some pumpkin seeds. And I said, hey, here are these pumpkin seeds. You can plant them in your garden and you can grow them. And she's like, great. And my husband really wants pumpkins. And what I had actually done, I took 2 packets of pumpkin seeds, one regular pumpkin seeds, and one pack that was giant pumpkin seeds, like competition pumpkin growing pumpkin seeds. And I switched them, and I gave my sister the giant pumpkin seeds in the hope that she would plant them and end up with, 100-pound pumpkins in her yard. So she's yet to plant them, but I'm pretty excited about the probability of her having very large pumpkins in her yard one day. So that is a brief look at things I think are funny. Yeah, Angelique thinks that's funny. Thank you. I'm glad. I think it's pretty funny. I think it's just good because it's just like it's such a long game, like for that joke to work. Yeah, no. You really have to. Yeah, Alex, you have to. It's really. It's a long joke, so it made me laugh, and every now and then I just get to like go back and think about it and be like, oh, this is going to be great. Yeah, so we'll see once the ground starts to thaw up in the Northeast. We'll be getting it. So yeah, that's a funny thing for me, which I really enjoy. So find out what works for you. It's different for everybody. Some people, gratitude journals or letters, they're really, that can be a huge one as well. It's just kind of reminding yourself, hey, I'm really grateful for the things that I have in my life and what's going well. Again, kind of tracking the good things that are going on in your life, volunteering, like I said earlier, practicing a strong trait each day. I think this one can actually get put into your push categories that you have in your weekly schedule. Like what's a strong trait? What can you do that, is challenging, but is also, like you really feel like you're thriving at. And then flow, which was our next topic that we're going to talk about. Engage in flow. Yeah, honestly, I've been bullied so far, so I've learned to champion others and celebrate small accomplishments. Yeah, absolutely. It's huge. Yeah, it's super huge. You know, it's really important to celebrate our accomplishments and to really be, to do the best we can. And right, hopefully not get too down about the other things. Sure, it doesn't look like Jeremy is here. Checked our roster real quick. So right, gratitude. We do tend to weight more heavily the negative things that we hear than the positive things. Gratitude's kind of just the natural jump over that hurdle. It says, okay, how can I, get over these things? And gratitude is one of the things. It's like we're happier, we have more deeper sense of purpose, better coping skills, less depressed, less stressed. We tend to have strong support, more satisfied with our relationship. And I'm sorry, when I say less depressed, I generally speaking, if clinical depression is a different thing, which I don't necessarily think that if it's I don't mean to say clinical depression it can be overcome just by gratitude. So please don't take that as medical advice. Although I do think gratitude can be a part of that, but I'm also not a doctor. So we end up being a lot more satisfied with relationships, less trouble sleeping, and overall more satisfied with life. Sorry, I'm going through reading. Yeah. Don't bully. Yeah, it's always funny. I feel like or bully the nerds. I definitely agree. I just don't think I'd never bully anyone. Just be nice to everybody. I feel like that's that's one of the things. Courtney says, "Well, outsmart you and get you back." Yeah. got a lively group. I'm excited. Thanks everybody for typing in there. So right, the positive psychology principle, difference between being proactive versus reactive. This last point in here is pretty huge. You cannot find happiness by assigning power to things outside of your own control. That's a huge one. And I think it sounds like some of us may have already learned this lesson, but if we assign power to people or entities outside of our control, we give up the power, and it's very hard for us to be happy in that situation. So yeah, just kind of take that for what it is. I think that's a really interesting point. If we start saying, oh, well, this isn't how I want it to go and it's outside of my control and I can't be happy, that's probably not the best way for us to achieve happiness. If we want to be happy, we want to say, okay, well, some things are going the way I want and some things aren't. I'm going to choose to focus on the things that are going well. It's what went well. That focusing on that really is key. So that's the end of this slideshow. We are going to take a break. I'm going to give everybody 10 minutes. Go get a drink. Do what you need to do. We'll come back and we will start right back in on flow. So get psyched for that. I will be back in just a few minutes. And we'll go from there. Welcome back. And is everyone able to see my screen? It says, today we will find our groove, take a fresh look at ourselves, and find our flow. Yes. Okay, cool. I just wanted to make sure everyone could see that. Perfect. So we're going to talk a little bit about flow, what that looks like, and we're also going to watch a video that describes it. So kind of the idea, and this is a great quote, the best moments in our lives are not the passive, receptive, relaxing times. The best moments usually occur if a person's body or mind is stretched to its limits in a voluntary effort to accomplish something difficult and worthwhile. That right there is almost, it's probably one of the best descriptions of what gets us into a flow state. The idea behind flow is that it's an activity that puts us in a state where people are so involved in activity that nothing seems to matter. The experiences are so enjoyable that people will continue to do them. People have probably had these experiences. A lot of times we, inevitably, it comes up. You look at extreme athletes, very, professional athletes, kind of at the top of their career. They will a lot of times talk about being in flow states. I think what's important though is those are great. They're great examples. It's great to kind of get, it's like, oh, like I was, had to make this shot and the whole world got quiet and I just was able to focus, and that's definitely like a flow state. But I think more importantly is being able to bring that back into, our creative pursuits. That's really where we want to look at flow. Kind of the ideas that encapsulate it. The sense when we're involved in something, we come into a timeless state. We lose track of time, of what's going on. We're completely absorbed in our task. Kind of the outside world does tend to kind of quiet down. We kind of everything around us settles, and we're able to focus completely on what we're doing. Sometimes we find that we're stronger, maybe sometimes physically, but sometimes like our skills kind of just seem to be tuned even that much more. We have additional alertness. We kind of have effortless control. Our if we're doing something creative, maybe our tools that we're working with seem to just kind of be like extensions of our bodies. Those are all kind of descriptions of what a flow state could potentially feel like. There's a video that I want everyone to go and just check out real quick, because it does a good job giving a more detailed description of flow. But if you will just go into the materials section, the little drop down menu, there's one thing you click on. It says flow. Just click on that. We'll watch it. It's a few minutes long, and then we'll come back. And I kind of want to be thinking about it if you've experienced flow states, because I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Alrighty, so hopefully that gave a pretty good description of what flow is like. Kind of should hopefully have kind of brought that into perspective for everyone. That is my hope, at least. If it didn't, feel free to jump in and ask questions. Or you can ask questions even if it did bring things into into focus for you. You know, whatever works. That is the kind of the gist of flow. So when you hear it talked about, you know, earlier in the reading, or in the presentation from earlier, that's kind of what we're talking about with flow, what that looks like. Is everyone able to see? Because we're going to move on. My screen says your brain on play. Can everyone see that? Cool. Awesome. So we're going to talk about just that. You know, what does play do to our brain? We're going to talk a little bit about neuroplasticity. I am drinking coffee. Yes. sorry for the slurping noises. Yeah, I like to stay caffeinated while I do my presentations, just to make sure everyone's wide awake, including me. And we're going to look a little bit about what the best forms of play are for our brain. I'm glad Cheryl supports my coffee situation. Yeah, no, it goes a long way. Yeah, Alex, coffee is the lifeblood. It definitely it is around full sail. It keeps us moving. So parts of the brain. This is kind of the most academic that we get. We've got the three parts of the brain. The oldest, the reptilian brain, is kind of our survival skills. The middle contains the limbic system and deals with emotion. And the newest, the front part of our brain, the neocortex, 4 lobes. It's all of our higher functioning. That is the short version of triune brain theory. Go a little bit deeper into it. So the reptilian brain, the brainstem, and cerebellum, it's really just our basic functioning. You know, our balance, breathing, heart rate. You know, it says you're hungry, eat food. Kind of really the most basic stuff that we do, that we need to survive, and you know, remain alive. You'll learn a lot from that in Zen training. Interesting. So the middle brain, it's our human rewards, our emotions, our memory, value judgment. It's all what's going on there, in the middle brain. Alex says, when I was learning to swim, my dad would just throw us in the water and say, "Let the reptilian brain kick in." How not to parent, Alex says. I'm only laughing because I had pretty similar experiences with learning to swim. So I'm glad I wasn't the only one who was maybe a little traumatized by swimming lessons from their dad. Yeah, I don't know what it was, but they thought that was a good plan. Alrighty. The neocortex. This is where our consciousness is held and contained, and functions. Our judgment, abstract thought. It's what sets us apart and makes us human. That's really it's the most updated version of the brain, the neocortex. You know, it's the brain with all the bells and whistles. It's divided into the 4 lobes. But yeah, that is effectively how triune brain theory works, and what it says about, you know, the different parts of the brain. You can see brain evolution as you go through. We've got good brains, so use them use them well. I'm going to show you a real quick video, which goes into a couple of different topics. It's one that says parts of the brain, mindfulness, and neuroplasticity, which are all things we're going to cover. But if you just click on that, watch that video, and we'll come back from that in a few minutes. Alrighty. So coming back from that, um, I think that gives everyone kind of an idea, just generally what we're talking about with mindfulness, neuroplasticity, how they work together. Um, Neuroplasticity is really interesting in that we can. Yeah, Dust says it was in the reading. I thought it was interesting. I'm glad. I'm glad you thought it was interesting. That's the idea. Right, neuroplasticity is how we can effectively rewire our brains. We can say, hey, I don't like, and I think that people maybe thought that historically, they you can only, people maybe looked at neuroplasticity as something like, okay, well, it's useful. I get it. My brain, I can rewire my brain to learn new things and learn different stuff and kind of forget old things, which is effectively how this works. I think anyone can look back at their childhood and think about something. I always use I use Pokemon as an example, and I ask people, and think about something for yourself if Pokemon doesn't apply. But it's inevitably, I know there's someone going to be who's in my class who could at one point in their life have told me, give me the name of every one of the original Pokemon. They could name them all. And I get a lot of hands. They go up and people are like, yeah, I could do that. And like, I say, how many people could do this? And they 10 hands go up. And then I say, okay, how many people can still do it? And maybe one or two hands are still up. Because our brain has said, hey, you know what? Like this, I'm not recalling this information on a regular basis. It's kind of not super important for me to retain for one reason or another. And I'm just like, so I'm going to not remember it. And that's exactly what happens with our brain. It just rewires itself little by little. You kind of get the artistic view of what neuroplasticity looks like, what our synapse density looks like over time. Cheryl says, through practice, our brains rewire the connections. The connectors and form new pathways. From continued habits and practices, they say a 2-year-old has more connections than most adults. You're right, Cheryl. They do say a 2-year-old has more connections than most adults. I would encourage everyone to remember that specific fact when you're looking at your weekly quizzes. It's a little hint right there. It's a tip for you. You can thank Cheryl for that one. But we can rewire as we continue to practice new things and ideas. Yes, definitely you can. You continue to rewire your brain. It continues to move. So you think about this. So that we have the kind of the artist interpretation. So a newborn, there's not a lot going on. They don't, they don't know that much stuff. Not that many things. They're not doing that much day to day. They, have probably figured out. I can remember what my parents look like, maybe what they smell like. I know what to do when I'm hungry. I know what to do in a couple situations, and then they kind of build. And at 1 month, it's like they're like, oh, I've kind of got more ideas of what's going on. 9 months, they're like, oh, I kind of have a few functions. I can can chew, I can drink, I can swat, I can do a couple different things. I can play a little bit. And at 2 years old, it's totally, there's a lot going on. There's a bunch of different things because the kid has just learned everything, not everything, but they've learned a lot of different things. So right, there's a ton of synapses going on at 2 years old. And right, there's more at 2 than there are as an adult. And the reason behind that is that, as we get into adulthood, think about, as a kid, you did everything. Everything was new and it was adventure and you were always out exploring. But as an adult, we get routines. We get busy. We have, we tend to, we drive to work the same way every day. Alex says, you know what you do? You get tossed in the water. Yeah, just Dustin says, just keep swimming. But right, like as adults, we're pretty, we're mentally, with those synapses, we're walking well-worn paths. I mean, I can tell you, I know how to get to work every day. I know how to, all the places I'm going, all the routines that I have. Those are the paths that, a path through the woods is really a great example. If you walk the same path, every day, that path is going to get deep. It's going to get well worn. You're always, cutting off anything that starts to grow into it. So yeah, you have like these really dark, very well worn paths that you are likely going through mentally, multiple times a day. So that's kind of what, it's obviously it's an art or an interpretation, but it's what our brains look like. So play is a pretty helpful thing. They're on studies on animals, they found that animals end up with thicker cortexes and have a higher factor of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which is a big word, and basically it's the things that facilitate neurons and synapses, and allows the brain to move and reshape itself. So basically, if we're able to play more, our brains work better. Is the easiest way to do that. They use they use big words, and I was like, oh, this it's confusing, and I don't know why the big words aren't on the test. So I don't know why we use them, but we do every now and then. We get real academic, but um, I think you get the idea. Um, when we look at studies on play, we find that language development and understanding of emotion is a lot higher in individuals that play more. So when kids play more, we're better able to understand our peers. You can read someone's face when if you beat someone at a game and they get disappointed, you can read disappointment. You're like, oh, they're disappointed. So, and this is what their face looks like. So, I'm able to understand that. If I have to explain to somebody a move that I'm making in the game, like, well, I'm going to do this, I'm going to get a better understanding of language and meaning. So, like language in context. Through play. Play is one of the tools that, especially for children, we're using a lot, and we're working with it. And we don't necessarily look at it as a learning experience, but when you think about all the subtle things that we're picking up through play, it's pretty valuable. We actually have this video about the study called the rat tickler. So feel free to jump into the material section. We're going to watch the rat tickler video, and then we'll come back. Alrighty, coming back from that, I'm enjoying the chat box. Okay. Let a bunch of rats go in your in your school. Wow, that's that's pretty intense. In hopes that it would close. All right, yeah, looks like everyone has different experience of rats. Maybe got a little sidetracked in that conversation, but hey, that happens. I get it. We're all having fun. We're engaged. We're relating to the topic. Uh, that's that's what's important. Um, um, so right, you think I think from there you kind of get the idea of play is beneficial, especially for navigating social hierarchy. That's one of the big ones. You think about that in terms of um, uh, just how to get along in society. I know we played a lot of cops and robbers when we were kids. Um, and it's one of those things like, oh, well, you did this, and you go and you act like the police and you pretend to arrest people or whatever it is you're doing. And kids say, oh, I don't want to be, I don't want to get arrested, so I'm going to be good and not break the rules. And those ideas, they get ingrained pretty young. Um, so again, the play and all of that really gives us the opportunity to explore the social world and figure out where we want to be, where we think we belong, where we fit into it, and go with that. So it can be pretty useful to play. So we have a couple of different types of play. Convergent play, which is generally like one solution or goal, which is like an example of a puzzle. The puzzle pretty much just goes together the one way. That's how it works. And divergent play, it has many solutions, helps creativity. Legos is a good example. And Legos always makes me laugh a little bit as the example, because if you follow the directions, it only goes one way. But if you just have a bunch of Legos and no directions, it's sky's the limit. So different forms of play kind of serve different purposes. Whatever people like is really what's good for them. I agree, Alex. Legos are amazing. No, no question about that. They're pretty much the best. So we think about play a little bit. We have symbolic and pretend play. Think about any time you pretended to be someone else. You play house, you play doctor, you play whatever occupation you're playing, make up situations. We're working on our language skills, working on critical thinking, problem solving, how we're going to interact with one another. Yeah, go get some Legos, play with them. I would encourage you to do that. Divergent play, it enhances creativity, problem solving skills, and academic performance. Free play, kind of play without structure, no imposed rules. It's important to just have breaks in our day to kind of say, okay, here's some unstructured free time. And the idea is that if those breaks are, like they're best when they're at least 20 minutes long. So, it's a little bit longer than a typical lunch break. So if you think about it, if all you have is your lunch break, and you can just get a little bit of play in, maybe eat your lunch as well, it can be a great way to use that time, with whatever works for you play-wise. Alex says, I actually, in a way, still do pretend play, do cosplay, and you get to be a character and dress up and go to conventions with other people who do. Yeah, no, absolutely. I please don't get the impression that pretend play is just for kids. I use the example a lot, but no, I mean, inevitably in my class, I have someone who is a live action role player, someone who's into that, which is, again, it's like whatever makes people happy is really up to them, I mean, unless as long as you're not hurting people, what's fun for you is what's cool. Ooh, you're in St. Augustine and play a pirate reenactor. That's awesome. That's really cool. I've been to St. Augustine plenty of times because I live in Florida. Playing D&D. Free play with kids, awesome way to get your creative juices flowing. Yeah, absolutely. I feel like inevitably, people find out pretty quickly that they have a lot in common with each other, and then can talk about play a lot. And I think sometimes people, maybe they're like, the thing that I do, maybe they'll be embarrassed by their play activity. But you know what? It's at the end of the day, everyone just does what works for them. So yeah, sorry. Back to what we're talking about. Types of play that are good for our brains. So we start off with chess. Chess is one of the big ones that we use, and one of my counterparts over here. One of my counterparts at Full Sail is actually pretty involved in the chess world. But chess is one of the things where we're really working on all sorts of different skills. We have we're working on creativity, we're working on visual spatial skills, we're working on strategy. There's really a lot going on, and right, kind of from there it says students in a NYC chess program improve reading scores more than non-chess playing students. I think that right there, it's like you're getting skills that you wouldn't even necessarily think were related to what you were trying to do. So overall, chess is a great way to kind of look at types of play that are very healthy and that do a lot for us. Music is another one. When we listen to music or play music, really a lot ends up happening in our brain. There's actually there's another video. It's called "Playing an Instrument," which we'll jump into. It's also in the material section. Just click on the one that says "Playing an Instrument," and I'll come back as soon as we're done. Alrighty, so I hope everybody enjoyed that video. I think it gives a pretty good idea of kind of right how musical instruments work, how music works within our brain, and what that all looks like. It's pretty impressive stuff. I always I think I don't play an instrument, but I have a brother who does, and I'm like, oh, maybe that's why my brother is so smart. But in any case, it even said it applies to people who go and do music learning. So I suppose I can always go back and learn an instrument if I feel so inclined. All right. Well, that is the end of the slides that I have for today. Does anyone have any questions? Questions about? Oh, good question, Dustin. I wonder if that applies to external instrument or singing counts too. I don't know. That's a great question. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. Courtney says she thinks it would. And Cheryl wants to know if Dustin is a singer. Does anyone Dustin also plays an instrument though. Oh, well, Dustin, you're like triple threat over there. You got to watch out for you. Okay, does anyone have any questions about this week, about your assignments? I think it's pretty similar to things that you've seen already. I know for people in my class, in my section, I'm getting grades in, getting that taken care of. So you should be getting grades today, tomorrow. Everyone feel pretty good about their weekly plan. I hope you do. Hope you're getting those turned in. Extra credit is done differently from instructor to instructor. I don't offer extra credit in my class, only because I think that we give a pretty good. I think most of the stuff is pretty widely available, but some instructors do. So I would say ask your instructor specifically for the class if they offer it. If they do, take them up on it. If they don't, you might be in my class. Yeah, the auto grade feature on the test is cool. It makes everyone's life a lot easier. You can just get your responses back quickly. The only thing that's a little bit frustrating for some people, I think, is that you can't see which ones you got right or wrong immediately, which is obviously because not everyone has taken the test yet. So if we gave you the answers, but at the end of it, once it closes on Sunday night, it reveals all the answers. So you can always go back if you're really curious about anything and double check them. Yeah. Thanks everybody for being here. I really appreciate it. We're not gonna talk about it, but if anyone is interested, I included in the materials. There's a video called Backward Bike. You don't have to watch it. It's kind of like more of a bonus. I think it's fun. It's from the Smarter Everyday YouTube channel. It's a really cool video. It kind of delves in with neuroplasticity and what that actually can look like. If you want to watch it in your free time, do it. I included it in there just so it was kind of ready and available. So if you want to watch that, check it out. It's pretty cool. If not, no worries. But I just wanted to have that there in case anyone did want it. Interesting. See, you can listen and think about multiple songs at once. That is pretty impressive. I can, I guess if two songs are on at once, I can listen to them both, but I don't think I can distinguish them. That's impressive, Paul. Yeah, I didn't know that. Okay, well, if anyone has questions, jump in. I'm happy to answer them and sit and hang out. Otherwise, you're free to go. Thanks everybody for an awesome go-to training. It's great having you all here. Yep, just let me know if there's anything I can do for you. Yeah, thanks, Cheryl. It's great having you here. I I think we do our best to have fun. This is a good group.